are actually taking place in the same space. In the, they're together. That would be a full Merkaba field, the top electrical and the bottom magnetic. And they are spinning together, one bringing energy into manifestation, which would be the out-breath, the exhale of God. It exhales frequency out into manifestation. And the other one is the inhale, as God pulls energy back in to the self for renewal. It's the breathing rhythm of Source, literally. If you put those two spinning in the same direction, you choke Source. And that's literally what happens. You stop the breathing rhythm, where it goes until it has nothing more to gasp with. And that's what happens with frequency when you spin them in the wrong direction. Where does the radial body that we saw the big diagrams of in the Dance for Freedom program, how does that fit in with this? Well, you have your parameter field, you have your peripheral field, and inside from that horizontal rotation of each of the spirals, there's another circulation of energy that's created. That's where you get the inner layers of the trion and miage field. They create inside the spirals where the rayon level of the peripheral field creates outside, that's the rayon void field, and the light field, is the primal light field is around it. We've dealt with these so far in the radial body. We've dealt with the miage field in here, trion field here, and the rayon field here. We hadn't even talked about the parameter field yet. So what's interesting too about these, this is the electrical one. This one, the electrical spiral, creates the trion light field. All right? It's base electrical. It creates the trion light field. This is considered the actual field. The Merkaba field itself, the cone-shaped thing, that's called the actual field. The trion field is part of the peripheral field. That's the parameter field. And inside all of this, you're going to have the virtual field, which is the manifestation of subatomic particles that become atoms, that become molecules, that become manifest stuff. All right? So all of that's happening inside. These are the things that are all around you. And these are how cathara grids, radial bodies, and Merkaba fields plug in together. This is the bottom spiral. Now, there's two interesting, this would form the miage field, which is much smaller. It's about a third the amount of energy. And so we try to show it like a third the size of the trion field. You have trion field here. It's not shown on here. What's shown here is the little miage field and the rayon field. You put those two together, and there is your simple bi-Ecka Merkaba with trion field, miage field, rayon field, peripheral body, and parameter body, actual fields. And inside there, you would have your virtual fields. And inside the virtual field, you'd have your little tiny Christos seed atom that's allowing the energy to pulse in and out and breathe in and out through that whole system, but through the matter form itself. Now, there's this funny-looking flower-shaped thing in here, if you hadn't noticed. This is what we found on our glass after the lights came back on. This is a flow pattern. It's called a Stanz, which has to do with shields, all right, your shields, and how energy flows and circulates through your shields. Imagine if you were building a river, and you were designing a town, and you were looking at a map, and you're saying, okay, well, I'm going to make the river go this way, right? You would create a flow pattern that the river would follow. Well, the Christos has, as part of its natural programming, a very specific set of codes that allow for the natural influx and outflux of energy. So the radial body's inside and the Merkaba field's outside and all that can form. Imagine a flash on of a flow pattern. Not that water's flowing down like a river would. It's kind of the same concept. It is a flow pattern. But the energy doesn't flow like liquid. It doesn't flow from one spot to another. It flashes on and then off. That's how the shields work. It flashes in to manifestation and brings that energy with it, those frequencies with it, and then flashes back off. When it flashes back off, another cycle set in motion. Actually, there's a little bit more to it because this one's doing it in synchronization with the other one, the magnetic spiral. When you put these two together, now this is called the Azarian Stanz, and that's the electrical one. This is called the Ashayon stand, also the Yan-yon, the male and the female, the divine male and divine female flow patterns. These are actually mathematical programs of very specific scalar frequencies that flash on in your shields in sequence. And they're not just yours. You can't have this happen to you unless your planet your galaxy, and your universe for having it happen. These are the universal reset buttons. These symbols don't work, and they don't refuel in everyday life. This pattern only comes into manifestation when it is time for the literally universal level. So our whole 15-dimensional matrix is getting reset. But the thing is, it's not just our whole 15-dimensional matrix. What's happening is the Ecka is getting reset as well. So this is big. This is really, really big. And fortunately, the symbols are really, really small, and they're easy to work with, and you only have to induce them once or twice. These are going to be activating in the grids. The yen and the yun, I just call them yen and yun for short, are going to be activating in the earth grids while we're here together this weekend.
Ash and I were talking about certain things to do with this and how we experience this thing we call consciousness expansion. And we were discussing areas of personal application and what we might and might not bring forward in the class. And we were doing this whilst waiting for a ferry that was 3 or 4 hours late a couple of days ago. And one of the things that we came into, which was a kind of a new realization for both of us, but seems very obvious, as a lot of it does once you've reached that point, is that this business of dimensional template healing, which is the foundation for your ability to what is called anchoring the benefits of frequency, which would also refer to DNA activation. These things represent, as you all know, the particle spin rate and the angle. Now, the thing about this that's interesting is that we realized that one of the frustrations that is shared by most people is that whilst you do all of the techniques, you do the work, you don't actually feel, from where you're standing or sitting, that you're experiencing too much your expanded self. And the thing that we realized was that we're unaccustomed to tuning in with those aspects of our dimensional templates that are healing and are actually responding to the techniques, and it's happening so fast that we don't see it. Because the flashing on and off speed, right, at the levels that you're aspiring to experience are much greater than your perceptual and mental ability to actually perceive, receive, translate the experience, okay? And we actually realized in the conversation that by simply being aware of that more often, that it actually enables you to recognize parts of the higher aspects of yourself that you're striving to connect with, right? They're actually there and they are connecting with you, but it's happening so quickly that you're not accustomed to noticing it. So that when you think in other ways of expressing the same thing, when people talk about, well, there's no coincidence, is there? Or you talk about certain kinds of phenomena that people treat in a rather slightly more mystical way, which is an external way, which is kind of like, it's not really to do with me, you know, that didn't really happen, I guess it's magic. Well, really, what you're doing is you're denying that part of yourself. Because in those kinds of moments, they are the kinds of moments in which you have the choice of identifying the phenomena as being a brief encounter with the parts of yourself that you're trying to integrate by working with the techniques. They're really there. And it concerns us that after a period of time like this, quite a long period of time for a number of people, that there is a sense that not enough is happening in my personal development. And the discussion was about this area. And what we realized is what I've explained to you, is that if you allow yourself to notice or be prepared to just accept that a fleeting experience that is so quick, you doubt that you had it. And this goes too for those of you that are trying to open to communication from the GA as well. It's the same thing, but it's just appearing to be presenting in a slightly different form, okay? I could go somewhere else with that too, which is about the Bardoa and the question someone asked yesterday, and if we have time, I might have a go at talking about it. Yes, I will. Someone asked me a question yesterday about the consequences of all of this. In fact, 2 people talked to me about different aspects of the same thing. And our lovely friends in Canada were, I can imagine how they engaged and debate with each other about what they should and what they shouldn't do to prepare. And Mara reminded me that one of our evening conversations, the 3 of us, Ash and he and I, we were dealing with some aspects of how we talk to you and how we direct you and what we would feel responsible for sharing and not. Like, for example, if we knew that the San Andreas was going to go in a couple of weeks' time, we'd just announce to people to move somewhere else far away from there, you know. But as distinct from personal stuff, it's tricky because we're not to interfere too greatly in the way that we make these choices, as this should be apparent from what I've been reading. And what happened was, when I was answering this question, was there is something about the approach to this that doesn't even involve Bardo, a transition per se. It's to do with how you allow another part of yourself to become present. Some of you have heard me talk before about bringing the sense of your full self into 3D here and now. And what that means, what it means to you attitudinally, what it means in terms of your behavior, how you hold your power, how you don't, and all the rest of that. Now, this story actually came up as a result of the exchange that Ash and I were having originally. And Ma'a tapped Ash on the shoulder and says, "Don't you remember the time you were both in the same body?" And anyway, the short story here is that it was a time, it was kind of around Manoa and Greece time, okay? And we were part of a Grey Line community that was being persecuted and hounded, okay, by some, there were Omicron people. And I, we, she, me was a messenger. And we were like super fast, had immense stamina, and we were used for all the really critical, important stuff. And there was an occasion in which we were given a final, ultimatum. Otherwise, we were going to be massacred again, right? And this message had to be carried to the city, right? And part of the journey into the city involved actually going along a huge, like, seawall that was designed to keep the water out where they didn't want it to be. And it was 2 or 3 miles long, and there was a cliff face where there were different caves in there. I, we, she, me were approaching the seawall, and we felt the tremor of an earthquake. And this tremor built and built and built. And what Ma'a helped us to do was to reconnect with the feeling that we experienced when we realized that the earthquake was very, very, very big. And we could see caves in front, the prospect of the instinct, the primal instinct to hide, to find safety, as distinct from connecting with what was happening. We were on the seawall, running as we would like the wind, when the tsunami started to appear. And the point of telling you this is to do with an adjustment to your perception of these times. And the celebration that I, we, she, me felt when we were 2/3 way across that seawall, and we gave ourselves back to Source. The joy was absolutely unbelievable. We both just cried. Because the liberation, the freedom, as we were helped to remember ourselves merging and becoming the sea, and that we delivered the message to the city in the way that Source would. In its indifference, eternally loving, unconditional way, the city received our rejection of their terms. We went home. And we went home with the biggest smile you could ever imagine on our faces. Now, as you all find your own way to move through this time, remember that you are going to have a moment like this if you allow it. And part of your preparation, part of the way that you utilize your relationship to free will and choice has this depth in which you're delivering yourself into a time-space continuum with the potentials that you've blocked from memory because it's so painful for you to notice the difference between where you are now and where you were once. It would crack you up. You'd be in tears for weeks if you allowed yourself to bring all the memory back in one go. It's just too much for you to handle that. But what I want to say to you is, think positively about this, all right? Prepare for a time of celebration. Your transition will be wherever it's planned to be already by you. Don't be afraid. Don't store cans of beans in the larder. You know? Don't buy shovels and, you know, invest in billions of liters of paraffin or what, you know? Just go about your business, pulling yourself together as best you can. Don't be a fool. Don't be lighthearted with your power. Respect yourself. Yeah? But don't get panicked and don't entertain any fear about it. Because when the moment comes, God bless us all, we will remember to smile from here to here. You know? Let's do some outcode induction.